All right, and we're back. I'm gonna finish up Garrity Part 2 now. It's about 12:30, Saturday, May 16th. And while I was taking a little break, uploading the first part to Substack and Medium and YouTube, I was kind of directed towards the Ned Beatty dialogue in Network, which I'm not gonna try to recite that one. When he's like, "You have meddled with the primal forces, Mr. Beale." That's a great, maybe 3 to 4 minute rant that he gives. In the beginning, he's like, "I started out as a salesman, Mr. Beale, and I worked my way up to whatever the fuck he said." He is just an amazing salesman. And you just see Beale's face, and he's like, "I have seen the face of God. You might be right, Mr. Beale." Yeah, it's a great movie. I'm not going to try to recite that one, but in the spirit, since this is the final episode of season 1, and it's glaringly obvious that I was inspired by Network and more specifically the ranting and the satire when they look at media culture. I'm not exactly using this story to talk about cable news, really, even though I do talk about it a little bit. The showmanship of it, what you think is real, they'll show fake footage and pretend it's something else. This has all been done in the past on cable news channels that have an agenda, and I just kind of pushed it to maybe a more absurd level. But there's a reason why a lot of those people make millions of dollars. They are pushing an agenda, they are actors, they're salesmen. There is a relevance to looking at news reporters more about the opinion side of shit, like the Sean Hannitys of the world. They're salesmen. They do radio shows for corporate sponsorship. They do their cable news shows for corporate sponsorship on platforms and channels that are owned by media conglomerates that are a part of that. It's not exactly scripted like I'm showing it, where this guy is pretending to be a Mexican cartel member, and to kind of Garrity's little ploy to boost ratings was to have this setup with a fake Mexican cartel member who's just an actor, and that you can see how ridiculous that went down. So yeah, I'm painting this in a very absurd way, similar to how Network did, in my view. When I saw Network, it gave me a different perspective on cable news, on global politics. So I'm not going to try to act this out because I'm not an actor. I never took acting lessons. This is the first time ever in my life that I've tried to read dialogue out loud and try to put some emotion behind it. So I'm going to read the Howard Beale piece before I begin part 2 here, because we're about to get to my rant, and this will be a good warm-up for me. I've never read this out loud before, but I'll do it now. This is the part of the movie and Network when he's just beginning to lose his mind, and he wants to tell the truth to his viewers. So he's like, "I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everyone knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everyone's out of work, scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do. And there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat, and we sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We all know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy. So we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radials. I don't even know what that means. And I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being, God damn it. My life has value. So I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the windows, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. Yeah, everyone's seeing this. I'm sure this is a popular monologue people use. Maybe not so much because it's such a common piece of cinema history. Or the Alec Baldwin speech in Glenn Ross. That's my other, one of my favorite rants. But this one, yeah, the first time you hear this, it hits you a different way. This is probably the 30th time I've gone through this, either by reading it or watching the movie or watching a YouTube clip of just this speech. So it's not as powerful as the first time you hear something like this. Maybe the Ned Beatty is actually more insightful and more provocative when he's talking about you're thinking like in the old ways. There are no countries. You're thinking in terms of nations, people, individuals, and then he's like, there is no countries. You want to know what the countries are? It's AT&T, IBM, Exxon. And he goes through that whole spiel about the world, how the world really works. There is no Russia. There is no America. There is no democracy. There is no West. It's all just a show, like the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain. Yeah, wake up, everybody. Wake up, everybody. So yeah, the first time you watch a movie like that and a performance like that, it will stay with you for a while. I intended to make my own version of Network, like I said, and hopefully you see that I'm going for that, but in my own style. I'm not trying to rip it off completely. It's just a look at social media and our information digital age as Network looked at cable news in the 70s when that was becoming for profit. That's the big difference, I guess. I don't know. I'm not educated enough to talk about media manipulation, conglomerates, all these big media moguls coming together to create these large media multinationals. And yeah, you could go in depth in that and talk about it for, you could take a whole class on that. Media manipulation, get into Noam Chomsky stuff, all that stuff that is just as relevant in any generation, whether you're in the time of the newspapers or now when, maybe now it's a little bit different in America. There's just an abundance of sources of information you could go to. It doesn't have to be really a known source. You can go off the grid on the internet and find different worldviews. They're out there if you really want to dig deep on the internet. It's not that hard to find, even on YouTube. And there's really nothing wrong with that as long as you attack these things with with the healthy brand of cynicism, so you don't just believe everything you see. But what if you watch cable news? Isn't everything the truth? Shouldn't you believe everything you see on the news? Like, yeah, watch the movie network. I'm not saying that's really how things work, but that's the structure of a for-profit cable news. For-profit is about ratings. It's about keeping commercial interest. It's about beating the other media down the other television channel. You want to outdo that person. Maybe local news is a little bit different, but it's still run by ABC, NBC, CBS, all the major corporations, and wherever they're getting their funding and commercial interest. We read a book in college. It was called Media Manipulation, because I was a journalism major. Media Manipulation textbook, maybe I don't know if that was Noam Chomsky, I forget. My college experience was weird. Yeah, I'm not going to find this. I forget who wrote this book. Media Manipulation. Yeah, I don't know who wrote this book, so I'm probably not going to waste too much time trying to find out. But I was all over the place in college. I took one class where the teacher was talking about Noam Chomsky and that type of yeah, I can't find it. I don't think that's what it was. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to find it. But we read books like that in this one class, and we talked about that. Synergy, right? Is that the word, corporate synergy? This is 20 years ago. I'm not up to date with my corporate terms and media networks that merged together since then. What does synergy mean? It just means like combining your resources, right? Or becoming almost like too big to fail, becoming so powerful. But I could be wrong. Maybe that's something else. Is the concept of two or more businesses that can generate greater value if they work together rather than, yeah, and they could, the whole is greater than the sum. All right, 2 + 2 = 5. That's how it's kind of described. All right, I guess I was kind of on there with the Orwellian concept. The two companies combined will be greater than the sum of the separate individual parts. So that plays into the media business. The news is a business. You look at network, there's a scene early on where they're having like a board meeting in front of all the investors, and they're saying, well, the news department will never be successful, but we're trying to do this and this. And then Faye Dunaway's character, her whole purpose is to build a competitive form of news/entertainment. When I was a kid, I don't know, maybe it was more aligned with 60 Minutes and 2020. I remember watching those shows, the John Stossels and stuff like that. I guess that's closer to hard news than tabloid stuff. It's not like TMZ of today or anything. I think those are well-respected programs with a lot of good interviews on 60 Minutes and stuff. But those things kind of passed me. As I got older, maybe it's my own cynicism, I kind of just stopped paying attention to any of that stuff. I got into Vice News for a little bit, because they kind of seemed like the new radical independent journalism, or that Julian Assange guy. Around that time period, I don't really know much about that guy, to be honest. I just know he was running for his life, trying to find a home in a different country because people were trying to get him or something. I don't know the whole story with that. Even though I was a journalism major, this was in early 2000s when I went to college. And I did get into political science as well, so maybe that's why a movie like Network connected with me from the first viewing, because it deals with the politics of the news. You can go back to Rosebud and Citizen Kane. It's supposed to be about that newspaper mogul And that's a character in The Wizard of Oz as well. I always forget his name. I want to say William Hurst or something like that. Who does the lion represent? Who does the lion? Because that will give me the answer. Yeah. Thank you, Google. All right, I was way off. William Jennings Bryan. All right, that's not the newspaper guy. He's just a populist Democratic presidential candidate in 1896 and 1900, known for his fiery speeches, his roar. All right. Bryan was deemed cowardly. I don't want to read about this guy. I thought one of the Wizard of Oz guys represented the newspaper guy from, is it William something Hurst? But maybe I was wrong. William Randolph Hearst. I don't think he was a symbol of the Wizard of Oz then. William Randolph Hearst was an American newspaper publisher, politician who developed the nation's largest newspaper chain, Hearst Communications, which I think it's still a thing, but I could be wrong. Is William Hearst a part of the Wizard of Oz? Because I always thought that. Nah, I was wrong. I was thinking, I thought the lion represented him for some reason, but I was wrong about that. All right. Yeah. All right, let me move on. All right. I talked about network to death, so I'll mention the other influence of this, because I'm going to get to my rant in about 3 or 4 pages. I'm just kind of preparing for that, so I can kind of give thanks to what led me to write these pages. And I said 15 Million Merits was my favorite Black Mirror episode. I was able to find his speech on genius.com, which is like a lyric site. Sometimes you find transcripts from film and television. I'll try to do this the best I can. In the episode, Bing is like this very passionate guy. You just have to watch it. I don't want to go through the whole plot of the show. 15 Million Merits, the episode of season 1, I think. And by the end of it, he has a piece of glass right next to his neck, and he's threatening to kill himself. And he's on stage in front of like an America's Got Talent type of show, in front of 3 judges, and he's saying, I haven't got a speech. I didn't plan words. I didn't even try to. I just knew that I had to get here, to stand here, and I knew I wanted you to listen, to really listen, not just pull a face like you're listening, like you do the rest of the time, a face like you're feeling instead of processing. You pull a face and poke it towards the stage, and la-di-da, we sing and dance and tumble around, and all you see up here, it's not people. You don't see people up here, it's all fodder. And the faker the fodder is, the more you love it, because fake fodder is the only thing that works anymore. Fake fodder is all we can stomach. Actually, not quite all. Real pain, real viciousness, that we can take. Yeah, stick a fat man up a pole and we'll laugh ourselves feral, because we've earned the right, we've done sell time, and he's slacking the scum, so ha 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 at him. Because we're so out of our minds with desperation, we don't know any better. All we know is fake fodder and buying shit. That's how we speak to each other. How we express ourselves is buying shit. I have a dream. The peak of our dream is a new hat for our doppel. A hat that doesn't exist. It's not even there. We buy shit that's not even there. Show us something real and free and beautiful. You couldn't. It'll break us. We're too numb for it. Our minds would choke. There's only so much wonder we can bear. That's why, when you find any wonder whatsoever, you dole it out in meager portions. and only then till it's augmented and packaged and pumped through 10,000 pre-assigned filters till it's nothing more than a meaningless series of lights while we ride day in, day out, going where, powering what, all tiny cells and tiny screens and bigger cells and bigger screens, and fuck you, fuck you. That's what it boils down to, is fuck you. Fuck you for sitting there and slowly knitting things worse. Fuck you and your spotlight and your sanctimonious faces, and fuck you all for taking the one thing that I ever came close to, anything real about anything. That I ever came close to anything real about anything. I don't know, I'm probably saying that wrong. For oozing around and crushing it into a bone, into a joke, one more ugly joke in a kingdom of millions, and then fuck you. Fuck you for happening. Fuck you for me, for us, for everyone. Fuck you. Yeah, it's a powerful speech, man. I don't know if you can find it on YouTube. The actor is really genius. Like, I don't know if this is really connecting to network in a lot of people's heads, but when I saw this episode, I immediately thought of this, the movie Network and the Howard Beale rant. Even though this has a lot of different aspects, it's more about how things that we value through the lens of the media is fake. It's all fake and plastic shit. The best line on this is that if you show if you show us something real, it's going to break us because we don't know how to handle real shit. Everything brought in front of the screen is some kind of a manipulation. Even our own social media profiles aren't really who we are. They're just fake versions of ourselves that we like to put out to the public to represent what we want to be. There is a vanity in that. Even if, I said in the beginning of in the first part of this, as a salesperson, you're told to sell yourself, and people view their social media profiles like that, like it's an advertisement for their own identity and personality, so they keep everything all neat, and it's really odd, man. I think people change massively in a very, very rapid fashion as soon as Facebook took over and all that shit. I think there was a collective vanity and narcissism that just infected like a fucking plague. It just infected millions of people. It's maybe me too. I don't think I'm different than anybody else. I worry about people's perception of me at times. But at this point, I don't really care. I honestly don't give a shit, because half the shit people say isn't even true. So how do you defend yourself against bullshit? You just don't. You ignore it. You let people just tire themselves out with their bullshit manipulations until they say, all right, let's move on to someone else. I think that's the right approach at this point in my life, at least. But you can see what reading these speeches aloud, Network and Bing's speech from Black Mirror, 15 million merits. Reading those speeches open up different modes of consciousness within me, where I start thinking about how this relates to my own life and my experiences. That's what good art can do, and that's why I wanted to read these. They're two of my favorite pieces of writing, and really it's the acting. Whoever the actor is, I mentioned his name before, but let me look it up again. He does an incredible, well, it is like a monologue, I guess. He's in front of like an American Idol type of judging panel with the studio audience there, and he's just going off, bearing his entire soul out to these fucking people. You have to keep in mind that, if you watch that episode, all these workers, if you want to call them workers, all they do, his name is Daniel Kaluuya. And, he's pretty good, man. I don't know what else he's been in. If I've seen him in other stuff, I don't know. He's an award-winning British actor and writer. I don't know if I've ever seen him in anything else. But I don't want to get too distracted here. Yeah, he's pretty well regarded in the acting. All right, he was in Get Out. Yeah, Jordan Peele, he was in Get Out. I did see that. He was in Black Panther. He was in Nope, which was another Jordan Peele one. So he's been in a lot of shit. From Judas and the Black Messiah. He won an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Co-directed the drama The Kitchen. I don't know what that is. So that's pretty cool. That's the first time I saw this guy. And he definitely sells this. It's up there with some of the best performances I've ever seen. That's up there for me. Because I am a huge fan of Black Mirror, like I keep talking about. But I wanted to at least say those two out loud first before I get back into the script and we finish Garrity's story, because whoever I picture at this point, whether it's McConaughey or maybe it's still Woody Harrelson or maybe it's somebody else. Weirdly, because I based the Garrity's character on Sean Hannity, I see the dude from Friday Night Lights too. His face kind of pops in my head. I don't know his name, but you know his face. He's got one of those faces. He looks kind of like Sean Hannity. Yeah, Kyle Chandler. If you look at Kyle Chandler, if they ever made a movie about Sean Hannity, he looks like exactly like him. He's got those same like eyes, like a Joe Scarborough too. Like, yeah, I could see him playing this role too. I think he could have like a little Howard Beale in him to go crazy like that. Never watched that show, Friday Night Lights, but I know it was very popular. So he's another guy I can picture, Kyle Chandler, if he could pull off a very... Well, let me get to the script. Let me get to the rant, and you can picture whoever you want at that point. Where we left off in this story, Garrity's still in his dream. He met Zanya again, and they're running around the city from, they had this Carrington event, the solar storm, and now all this black and white static is snowing down like snowflakes onto them. He's running towards his skyscraper building where all these lightning bolts are striking the top. And there's an antenna on top that looks like an electrical tower, that same kind of design. And he just knocked out the twirling sign mascot, the purple teddy bear that was saying, "Have a gloritin day, Paul." And now they're going into the skyscraper lobby. He's still dreaming this, but it's the same building as the one he works in. So let's continue. We're on page 33, right at the bottom. Garrity is sprinting inside with Zanya. As the room appears exactly the same as his work lobby, with the same security guard seated by the metal detector. Security guard. "Hey, Paul, what brings you by so late?" Paul, or Garrity, I'm calling him Paul. Garrity and Zanya, or I've called him Garrity to this point, so I gotta keep consistent. Garrity and Zanya are passing through the metal detectors and they set the alarms off. As the security guard notices his weapon, security guard, "You know I can't let you in this building with that, Paul." Garrity, "Listen, there are things going on here that I can't even try to understand." Security guard, "Oh, I think you understand perfectly well, Paul." The security guard's face now morphs into a black and white TV static as he grabs Garrity by his neck and launches him against the sidewall like a speeding bullet. Zanya runs to check on him as 7 more guards with TV static faces now burst into the lobby, brandishing Revolutionary War era muskets. Garrity rolls on the ground and fires towards them as their faces shatter into shards of glass. They march towards Zanya, but she stretches her arms high and pushes a wave of energy towards them, sending them flying through the front windows. She helps Garrity back up and leads him through the metal detector, where another guard blocks their path. Garrity now tightens his red, white, and blue headband and charges this guard. You have to picture these guards. They have like TV screen faces, but they're just showing black and white static. Or you can just have some weird effect where it's just black and white sparks coming out of their head instead of their head. They're coming out of their neck. So Garrity is going in for the war, all-out war right now, and he's charging this one guard. But the guard flips him over and knees him in the back, and then he stands over him as his static face clears and morphs into an episode of Garrity's show. So now the guard's face is showing an episode of Garrity's show, and on his face is Garrity, and he's saying, "Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Well, I say it's time to pull back that said curtain and set the whole motherfucker ablaze." The other guards rise back up and grab their muskets off the ground while one of them snatches Zanya and holds her around the neck, using her as a shield. Zanya to Garrity, "Just leave me. You're the only one who can end this." The guard throws Garrity hard against the wall as another clip plays on his face. So Garrity is like getting his ass kicked. He's laying on the ground. This robot guard with a television face is kicking the shit out of him. And on this guard's face is an episode of Garrity playing. And Garrity saying on the screen, "Think about everything we worked for. What kind of legacy do you want to leave?" Garrity grabs 3 red, white, and blue ninja stars from his pocket and flings them towards himself on the guard's face, breaking it into hundreds of pieces. So he's like killing himself almost in a way there, symbolically. He's killing himself on the TV screen. Now he dives forward, primal screams, and fires blindly from his AR-15 in a mad rampage of bullets, striking the rest of the guards. And then he hurries towards Zanya as colorful blood flows from her chest, a victim of his crossfire, so he accidentally shot her as well. He now carries her to the metal detector and sits her against one side as she takes her final breath. At this point, he cries over her corpse, then marches towards the elevators with eyes of vengeance. So yeah, Garrity's got full vengeance on the mind. He just lost his dream lover. All right, now we're going to see really quickly outside on the top of the skyscraper, more lightning bolts are striking that large antenna, lighting up the entire building like black and white neon lights. I really wanted to present this like an old-fashioned monster movie, like you're going to this creepy castle and there's lightning striking the top, like vampires or Dracula's castle or some shit. So I wanted just to keep going back to that. I think that would be a cool effect. All right, now Garrity is walking inside an elevator, still very distraught over Zanya's death, as he presses floor 7 and watches the elevator doors shut. Jaguar Woman's face flashes in front of him, then behind him on the back wall, and then all around him as she laughs maniacally. So her face is just all around him, laughing. He's losing his mind even more now. The elevator violently stops as the doors morph to black and white static, and then it plays a clip of Garrity's show. So this is Garrity on the elevator doors doing one of his shows here, and he's talking in like a demonic effect. "And always remember, folks, a good guy with a gun." He stares at himself on the screen, and then he presses floor 7, and then he keeps pressing it and pressing it harder and harder, but the elevator doesn't move. He keeps pressing the button, but a pharmaceutical advertisement plays on the elevator doors. showing a purple teddy bear frolicking through a field of smiling sunflowers. And now we see this commercial on the doors of the elevator and a calm voice reading from the ad. Consult your physician if you experience any thoughts of your own or begin to realize how fucked we all are. Garrity laughs to himself like a maniac now as piss streams through his pants, as the calm voice on the elevator door screen is saying through laughter, "Why are you peeing yourself, Paul? Have a gloritin day." At this point, the elevator now resumes ascending, only to stop a few moments later, as the doors open and Garrity steps out. Now Garrity is walking towards the production room as the high-pitched shrieking returns, causing him to fall over and cover his ears. He crawls forward where the twirling sign mascot, that purple teddy bear, sits in his chair behind the news desk. Twirling sign mascot. Sure you want to go in there, Paul? It's Wabbit season. Like an Elmer Fudd tribute right there. It's Wabbit season. The mascot's villainous laughter echoes through the shrieking as Garrity finally reaches for the doorknob and he enters the production room. Inside, Garrity crawls through the door and his hand is pressed against his ears as the shrieking is echoing even louder now. He's staring towards the TV screens, all playing black and white TV static, just as everything goes quiet. He rises, while the screens play various diatribes from his past shows in a complete mishmash of conspiracy-laden paranoid madness. Now, I'm going to read off 7 different screens, which are all showing at the same time Garrity in different versions of himself, different episodes, and he's talking, and all these voices will be talking over each other for that type of an effect. So on the first screen, this is the production room, so he's looking at a wall of screens, and they're all playing different episodes of him. The first screen shows him licking a red, white, and blue popsicle, and the Garrity on screen is saying, "The anarchist agenda has landed, ladies and gentlemen, has always been here, waiting for the right time to rise up." On the second screen, Garrity is sitting on top of the news desk, pointing his finger like a gun. Garrity on screen, "Will you be able to protect your loved ones?" On the third screen, Garrity is just puffing a cigar with his legs up, and Garrity on screen is saying, "Divine inspiration or digital emancipation. They're not just coming for your jobs, folks. They're coming for your souls." On the fourth screen, Garrity is wearing a Soviet Union winter hat and coat, and the Garrity on this screen is saying, "Just get out now while you still can, big guy. Try Siberia. I heard it's real nice this time of year." Now Garrity, the real Garrity that's on the floor watching all these screens, he's beginning to lose his mind now as he's yelling towards all of his multiple selves on all these screens, and he's saying, "Shut up, just shut your goddamn mouths." So he's yelling at himself on the screens. On the screen number 5, he's saying, Garrity is laying on his news desk on this screen, tossing a football to himself. And the Garrity on this screen is saying, "Do I really need to mention all the civil liberties being pissed away?" On screen number 6, Garrity is wearing a red, white, and blue tie around his head. And on the screen, he's saying, "Don't blame us, Paul. You're the one who forgot about ego death, you unfortunate blowhard son of a bitch." He loses his last bit of sanity as the real Garrity on the ground is rolling over and he's having a fit of complete madness at this point. Garrity, "This isn't real. None of you are real. Ah." On the 7th screen, Garrity stares directly into the camera as it zooms closely on his mouth. And this Garrity is saying, "You killed her. You killed all of them. Not even your happy pills can cover that up. It was always you, Paul. And don't you look so surprised. So he rises in a rage at this point, and he fires his AR-15 towards all the screens, screaming at the top of his lungs as they all shatter from the gunfire, until only one screen remains. And on this screen, Garrity is saying, "A good guy with a gun." Now he fires towards his last screen and watches it shatter. Then he falls over in exhaustion and curls up in the fetal position, hugging his AR-15 closely, like a child would a teddy bear. All right, pretty monumental scene there in his life. Again, this is a dream, but this is his thoughts within his head, right? Your dreams are just your subconscious thoughts coming out. And he's having all these weird realizations in his dream right now. All right, he's leaving the production booth and going back to the news studio. He's crawling out the door. A man completely losing his mind at this point. He's clutching his AR-15 close, completely exhausted. He crawls to his news desk and casually pushes the twirling sign mascot out of his seat. And he sits down, tightens up his red, white, and blue karate headband, places his AR-15 in front of him on the desk, and then he stares into the camera. Garrity. This begins the long, long rant that hopefully I don't mess up too badly. It's been a while since I read this, so here we go. Garrity. Well, it appears this is it, folks. One last broadcast, one final harangue, one last-ditch exploit to boost this shit network's ratings. He clears his throat and continues. Garrity. I used to care about all this nonsense, you know. Politics, economics, intellectual, rational debate. This American Goliath of a system to rightly best all prior systems of governance, free markets, a free enterprise, scarfing down freedom fries, while freedom rings from every false prophet's free fucking fraudulent lips. He smiles and caresses a white rabbit as it hops onto his desk. Garrity. Empty words of hollowed out souls, speaking in tongues dipped in gold encrusted 10-second sound bites, stock market oracles, and mood-altered misanthropes, ready for the next conspiracy to sting your defenseless diseased retina. Harvest your uncompromising fears and divide every ounce, every cell of what allegedly makes one human. He picks the rabbit up, leans it against the front of his desk, and gently pets it as he continues. Garrity. A fruitless endeavor, of course, for no matter how high ratings may soar, I persist only as a pawn in this here electrically gridded gauntlet, a pawn like all of you, but of a much more sinister design, another expiring narcissist with an ego too big to fail. He releases the rabbit onto the ground and walks closer towards the camera. Garrity. Maybe a whore as well, but then what does that make all of you exactly? A loyal audience of pimps? Or just my mentally and emotionally deficient slaves of political lust, unable to resist the manipulation night after night, rant after rant, pleasuring yourself to this Machiavellian cosmetic garbage trickled down upon you like bloody urine, broadcast on this network 24 hours a goddamn day. He sits down on his desk and strokes his gun as he catches his breath. Garrity. You are free to call this news program whatever you prefer. Fake, vile, total bullshit, tabloidish, toilet bowl dwelling, substanceless crud, agenda-driven pornography funded by corporations too powerful to give a shit about appearances any longer. And sadly, my dogged horde of patriots, you would probably be correct in most of those assessments. He's now pacing nervously around the studio with his gun. Garrity. All in good fun, right? Where's the harm exactly, the damage, the danger? For as I stand before all of you tonight, I must proclaim that the real danger breeds not from my hackneyed barking, but inside all of you. He dives over the news desk like he was in a war zone diving in a trench, and then he cautiously lifts his head up. Garrity, as you negotiate the fake news within your own rotting souls each and every blank-faced morning and each and every opiate-diluted night, he places his gun onto the desk and zips around the studio erratically like a televangelist. Garrity, I could have just as easily went the other direction in my youth, a left-wing version of the very same soul-sucking, platformed, parasitic privilege, punani-laced on-air pollution. Eat the rich while supplies last at your favorite fast food chain restaurant that finally agreed to pay their employees a living wage so all of you can feel warm inside as you eat rat meat washed down with 72 ounces of carbonated sugar water. The twirling sign mascot tosses him a bottle of Gloritin pills. Without a second thought, Garrity opens the bottle and tosses a handful of pills into his mouth. And as he's talking now, he's chewing on the pills, forcing people to conform to a profoundly sensitive, highly manufactured, righteously cuckolded, socially misengineered identity that they never chose for themselves in the first place. He spits out the remaining pills from his mouth. Garrity, well, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, with all due respect, fuck your identity. Now he's thrusting his lower body wildly, like he was simulating a sexual act. He's just humping the air as he's continuing now. Garrity, fuck your age, fuck your name, fuck your race, gender, and sexual orientation, fuck your creed and your nationhood, and anything else you claim so vaingloriously to be such an essential part of your being on your well-maintained and manicured social media profile pages. He's catching his breath on his knees as he's crouched against his desk. Garrity, so just be careful who you point the finger of blame towards, for although I duly confess to be a noble tart of the greater American body politic, faithful soldier of the Fourth Estate, bursting with utter hypocrisy, propagated from this greedy, murderous, revulsive media conglomerate, I am not the one repeating these absurdities during Thanksgiving dinner or spreading these prejudicial asinine ramblings at your places of employment, nor sharing them on your social media forgeries, where you all have traded in your intelligence for vanity-veiled digital tribalism. Now he falls to his side as he pounds his fist onto the floor. Garrity, for I am not the one who watches. Now he's pacing around the studio like a man on fire, while the twirling sign mascot pumps up a super soaker water pistol and shoots purple liquid at his face. As Garrity continues, Garrity, maybe it's just a rotting component of our DNA. No matter what side of the fence you pledge your tribal allegiances, belief in boogeymen, strawmen, holy men, chosen ones, towers overflowing with babbling imbeciles. He jogs around in a circle. Garrity, a golden lottery ticket away from finally buying into the classic black and white movie many still proudly term the American dream, while claiming your rightful piece of Neanderthalian flesh in the process. A fucking chicken in every fucking pot in every fucking suburbanized brainwash holier-than-thou domicile. He sits on the lap of the twirling sign mascot, like a child would sit on Santa's lap. Garrity, nature versus nurture. Does it really matter any longer? Nor if we really evolved from stoned apes or created from bloodied severed limbs of devilishly deformed sorbital lust. They cuddle together closer as Garrity cries like a child. Garrity, nobody ever really loved you to begin with, and it's about damn time you realize what ring of hell we really find ourselves in, just how divine inspiration really works, and how to escape this diabolical masquerade where war is still considered a righteous playground for psychopaths, private incorporated militiamen, and religious fanatic sycophants alike, funded by your very own honest-to-Jesus tax dollars. He paces around, then he catches his breath. Garrity, and thus, just like the song, all things must pass, even deranged, loud-mouthed gremlins like myself. He grabs his gun, bows to the camera, sticks the tip of it into his mouth, and then he pulls the trigger, only to discover that he's out of bullets. As he screams in frustration, then he hits the trigger again, and then he flings it to the ground. Jaguar woman strolls towards him from the shadows and kisses him passionately on the lips as he falls into a daze, completely under her spell. Jaguar woman is now speaking. This is the only line she has in this movie, and she's whispering in his ear. Every algorithm finite, conscious state, ever persistent. She opens her jaw wider and wider and bites half of his face off. And that is the end of Garrity's dream. So that's a lot to take in there. I'm not going to repeat that again. That was a lot to speak. Like 5 pages of that shit. Yeah, it's a long dream sequence. It's like 20 pages of a dream, just like The Wizard of Oz. But that's the highlight, that ranting that I just went through. I don't know, who do you see doing that? What actor would be able to do that? You need somebody kind of older and grizzled, but, you know, it's a good bit of tribute to Network and Black Mirror and types of rants like that. You could tell that's where I formed all these thoughts from, movies like that. Even that movie Spike Lee did with, what's his face? I can't think of his name. You know, The 25th Hour. There's a really good rant in that as well. 25th Hour movie. I can't think of his fucking name. The dude from the fucking Fight Club. Edward Norton. Ed Norton, yeah. There's a scene in that where he's talking to himself in the mirror and he's just going off. I'm not going to look it up right now, but that's another good one. Where you just get all your thoughts out in the most... I don't give a fuck if people get offended at all. I'm just going to let it all hang out. Wave my dick in the wind. Like Dean and Gene Ween. Like Ween, so wisely advised, waving my dick in the wind. Alright, let's continue. But that's the highlight of this script for me. Whenever I would read this, I would get kind of excited when I got to that point. And then, what do we have? Maybe 10 pages left or so. But that took me a long time to structure in some kind of a logical way. I talk about social media. I just talk about vanity and narcissism, all that good stuff. I'm not going to read through it again. It's too much to read through. But that's the best rant that I've ever come up with. I don't know if I could do better than that. Because I was really pushing myself to reach deep down and find things that would speak the truth to not just the social satire, but shit that I was feeling personally. And I still can notice the personal reaction I get from reading some of the lines. So yeah, I really enjoy it. Alright, we're leaving Oz. We're leaving Garrity's version of Oz. We're back to the parking garage where we last left him when he was shooting his gun and knocked him out. And he's waking up dazed against his truck now. His pants are completely covered in piss. as the Mexican cartel member is standing over him with that security guard from before who's playing with his AR-15, as Garrity sits up a little and says, "Man, how long was I out?" Mexican cartel member, "Not long, maybe 20 minutes or so. The ambulance should be here soon to check you out." So he's only been conked out for like 20 minutes, and he had this crazy dream that probably seemed like an epic, like Gone with the Wind style epic. But really, he was only passed out for like 20 minutes because time is different when you're sleeping. Time is not the same as when you're awake. The relative nature of time is completely different. All right, so he wakes up and he's staring down at his pee-pee pants. He just pissed himself during the dream. Garrity saying, "God damn." The cartel member saying, "Yeah, you definitely pissed yourself." And the security guard saying, "Might be time for diapers, Paul." And then he's laughing with the cartel member and saying, "Circle of life." They both laugh at him as he stands embarrassed, wiping off his wet pants, as the cartel member says, "Sorry, Paul, but you have to admit, watching a 50-year-old go pee-pee in his pants is about the funniest damn thing you could ever feast your eyes on." Garrity rubs the back of his head and then winces in pain as he sits on the back of his truck. Garrity, "Man, it feels like I've been asleep for days." The cartel member, "Take my advice from earlier, Paul. Find a nice quiet place to get your head together. I know you're still head honcho around here, but even you aren't safe from being canceled. We all need to take that trip away from reality once in a while." Garrity grins towards him like a madman, almost like the Joker grin, eye to eye. Garrity says, "I think I already took that trip." Now he stumbles towards the security guard and grabs his AR-15. And then he gets in his truck and starts it up, as the cartel member screams at him, "Paul, at least wait for the ambulance. You ain't exactly a spring chicken." Garrity's driving away and he's giving his middle finger out the window. "Fuck off." And he recklessly backs up the truck. Or he's driving away, yeah. The cartel member says, "You can't just cruise around with a loaded semi in your vehicle." And then Garrity really speeds away, sticking his middle finger out again and saying, "We ain't in Kansas anymore, amigo." The two men watch him speed away with a concerned expression on their face. All right. A little bit later, Garrity is driving through an upper-class section of the city, and he's passing people eating at outdoor cafes and restaurants. He brakes at a red light, watches a female busker on the sidewalk as she performs a cover of "This Feeling" by Alabama Shakes, and the female busker singing the lyrics, "I just kept hoping the way would become clear. I spent all this time trying to play nice, fight my way here," and go on from there. Whatever you want to do there. But that's the song I picked. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to be allowed to use these songs, but if not, you just have to improvise something else. But I would love to use Alabama Shakes because I didn't even mention during that whole fight scene is their song would play in the skyscraper during the dream when he's fighting all those security guards with the static faces. You would play "Don't Want to Fight No More." You would play that throughout that scene. "I don't want to fight no more." All right. Where are we? The female busker is continuing her performance as Garrity kind of is mellowing out and enjoying her performance. And she's singing, "I've been having me a real hard time, but it feels so nice to know I'm going to be all right." So it's a really peaceful song. I'm not doing it justice here. But Garrity is enjoying her performance, mellowing out in this rare moment of total serenity that we never really see him with a smile on his face like that, in like his Zen state. Until an impatient driver behind him honks the horn continuously, breaking him out of his peaceful state. As he sticks his head out the window, Garrity, "Hey, your life really that important that you can't wait 3 damn seconds?" That's Garrity screaming at the driver behind him. The driver doesn't give a shit, he just keeps honking as Garrity eventually speeds away carelessly. Moments later, Garrity is lighting a cigar, and he's turning on the radio to the Mexican mariachi music. And then he's staring at himself in the rear view as he grins like a madman. Garrity is singing, "Ay, ay, 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 canto y no llores." He's just going crazy with his Mexican music. He brakes at a red light and gazes towards a man standing on the corner who's twirling a sign for a local mattress store. "Everything must go, no offer refused." That's on the sign. So Garrity now turns up the volume and he stares back at this man, but now he's morphed into the twirling sign, purple teddy bear mascot, with a sign that says, "So, how's your day going, Paul?" Garrity chuckles to himself as he puffs his cigar, and he says to himself, "Just peachy, my furry friend. Just fucking peachy." The mariachi music blares as the light turns green and he speeds away. Moments later, Garrity is still puffing his cigar, driving his truck, as a vision of Zanya flashes in front of him as she crosses the street in a sunflower dress. Just then, the high-pitched shrieking also returns. Garrity screams, covers his ears, and drives forward, ramming his truck into 2 small hybrid vehicles driving in the opposite direction. His truck plows right through the smaller cars, and he ignores the wreckage as he gazes towards Zanya as she turns a corner and smiles towards him from the sidewalk. Now he's completely lost in a daze, like he didn't even know he crashed into those cars, and he crashes his truck into a newsstand on the corner and slams his head into the steering wheel. His nose is now covered in blood, and he places the truck in park. He grabs his red, white, and blue bandana out of the glove compartment, ties it around his head like a karate headband, like how he looked in his dream, and he exits the vehicle as the shrieking echoes louder. The newsstand vendor, male, walks up to him. Newsstand vendor, "Hey, what the shit, buddy? You could have killed somebody." Garrity ignores him, hearing only the shrieking noise and the faint echo of his own voice. All he hears is the shrieking and this man's faint echo, like he doesn't really hear him. And the newsstand vendor's like, "Hey, buddy, you wait here while I call the damn cops." Garrity's still dazed, and in this state, he's gazing towards a graffitied wall nearby of the satellite orbiting the Earth, emitting black and white streaks of static. All right, now we're going to space. This is Garrity's daydream hallucination here. Garrity casually floats through space in his red, white, and blue robe, kind of like the Big Lebowski scene, that dream scene in the Big Lebowski. That's probably what I was inspired by here. He's sipping his coffee, very casually just floating through space as he drifts by a large satellite with the word OM engraved on it. There's that OHM again, OM. All these giggling troll creatures with colorful spiky hair are shooting out from the satellite beams and heading down towards Earth, waving towards Garrity with glee as they pass him. An old man, John Deere trucker hat, sits on a beach chair atop the satellite, drinking a can of beer. At a closer glance, he's the same man previously known as grizzled frontiersman from Garrity's dream, but now he has no beard. They're the same actor, just he looks a little bit different, hanging out on the satellite drinking a beer. Old man. Had to change up the script, didn't you now, son? Just couldn't help your damn self. Garrity drifts closer towards the satellite. Old man. The natural order of things. This old man is chugging the rest of his beer and burping, crushing the can with his forehead, and then tossing it into space behind him as the can just floats out to space. And he's finishing his thought. So the first part of his thought was the natural order of things. Drink the beer, smash it over your head. It's been established that way for a reason, boy. You keep shifting reality, you'll end up stuck in the sauce. No thoughts left to call your own. Not that you really ever had any to begin with. The old man opens up another beer and drinks it. Old man. You think you're immune to this virus? A new breed of shamanic empiricism? Or some neural-linked telepathic revolutionary necromancer? The old man laughs to himself and drinks more. Old man. I won't be around to clean up your mess this time. Like a pig to the slaughter, go forth. Take it like a man. Better yet, clench the pestilence and claim your rightful place in hell. The old man lifts up his ass. So he's sitting on top of a satellite in space. He lifts up his ass and he farts loudly. And then he chugs the rest of his beer and throws the can away. Old man. What a vapid, crestfallen generation. Garrity drifts away from the satellite, drinking his coffee. Headed back towards Earth as more cheery troll creatures shoot out of the satellite and follow him. Alright, what the hell am I talking about here? The old man is viewing Garrity as Garrity views the producer. Like, every generation looks at the next youth as like, oh, these kids are going to fuck everything up. They're not following our traditional path. Everything's going to go to shit. That's kind of how the cycle goes through a lot of generations like that. So this could be Garrity's dad. This could be his uncle. This could just be a representation of the old school, even older than Garrity. That generation before Garrity, those people that shot Dennis Hopper with the shotgun in the final scene of Easy Rider. If you want to go back to that as a bookend, because the episode, The Last Prisoner, was based on Easy Rider, kind of. At least how I ended it was a tribute to Easy Rider. So that's all this scene represents. Garrity might seem like the old crusty caveman, but you could go a generation before him, and Garrity's going to look like a progressive liberal. In 100 years from now, the liberals of today will not be what it looks like in 100 years. It's always going to shift. When is it going to reach a point when the left and right don't exist anymore? Even though it is kind of a non-existent concept. It's so plastic and fake a lot of the times just to spread this divisiveness. But what will it look like when there's no more left versus right? Yeah, the political spectrum. That paradigm is not going to last forever because it's already looked upon as very unattractive. That's all I'm trying to say in this little dream sequence. And Garrity's losing his mind at the same point. Maybe it's a bit of comic relief. I don't know what happens if you fart in space. I don't think there's sound in space, but in this version, there's sound in space because I want the guy to fart. I want the guy to fart on a satellite. So I'm breaking the rules of physics, and he's going to fart on this goddamn satellite. Motherfucker. I want to show a guy farting in space. It's my dream since childhood. All right. Garrity is snapping out of his dream now. He's back at the newsstand as that high-pitched shrieking is even more annoying now. He's covering his ears and he's still gazing towards that graffitied wall as the newsstand vendor is still trying to get his attention. Newsstand vendor. Hey, buddy, are you even listening to me? Hey, buddy. Garrity pushes him aside. opens the back door of his truck, grabs his AR-15 as he backs away, as the newsstand vendor backs away with his hands high. Newsstand vendor. Oh, no need to get crazy, buddy. Just a little accident, right? Garrity ignores him, calmly strolls down the sidewalk as other pedestrians notice his weapon and quickly dart away. He then spots Zanya again walking a few yards in front of him and hurries after her. He pushes random people out of the way as their faces morph into black and white TV static, as deep demonic voices echo within his mind. I have 6 voices here. They're all going to be like swirling around his head. You are worthless. You're a whore. You are the noise pollution. There is no hope left for you, Paul. You are the architect. How's your day going, Paul Garrity? So all of these voices will be swirling around his head as he's completely having a complete breakdown. Garrity falls to his knees in another fit of madness, covering his ears as the voices repeat faster and faster within his mind, as panicked people run farther away from him. And all these people running in his perception have these TV static faces. Now he's blindly spraying his weapon over his head, shooting parked vehicles and buildings, and then he wipes sweat from his brow and stumbles towards Zanya, who stands a few yards in front of him, as everything around him begins to morph into blotches of black and white TV static. He reaches out towards her as she turns around, revealing Jaguar Woman's grinning face. So it's really Jaguar Woman the whole time. Ha ha ha. Jaguar Woman is laughing in hysterics. Or I'm sorry, this is Garrity. Garrity is laughing in hysterics and spraying more gunfire over his head until he's out of bullets. He tosses the gun away and falls to his knees, sobbing like a baby, as Jaguar Woman disappears in a flash of golden light. Then a man's hand, gripping a handgun, shoots a single bullet into the side of Garrity's head, as he instantly collapses dead on the sidewalk, and we begin to drift above this grisly scene. I would kind of show this like nobody, he didn't shoot anybody, he just shot up a bunch of cars, and nobody ended up getting killed from his gunfire. The shooter, a tourist in a red baseball cap, holds up the handgun in high spirits, and the tourist in a red baseball cap is saying, I got him, I got the motherfucker. His wife runs towards him wearing an Elmer Fudd Looney Tunes t-shirt. Remember, it's Wabbit season. And in this scenario, Garrity ended up being the Wabbit. It's Wabbit season. So his wife is wearing an Elmer Fudd t-shirt, and she's breathing heavily, and she's saying, holy shit, isn't that Paul Garrity? The man leans in closer to Garrity's dead body and smiles proudly, and this tourist in a red baseball cap is saying, I think it is. A good guy with a gun. Fucking right. Now we drift even higher from this scene as we pass electrical wires and antennas, telephone poles, and 5G cell towers. As Jaguar Woman sits atop one of them, her hair now like Medusa's head of snakes. And in the background, this is a really cool scene in my head. We're way up, like above buildings, and we see Jaguar Woman just crouched on the top of like a 5G tower or any kind of tower like that. Cell phone tower, electrical tower, all these frequencies everywhere, and she's the one in control of all these frequencies. Jaguar Woman. And that's how we kind of end it. And we're going to bookend this season with an Aldous Huxley quote from Scenes of the Mind. And this would be supered on the screen at this point. Or you could have a cool voice maybe saying it. I don't know, I didn't think about that. And the quote is, and in the silence that ensued, have known the endless solitude of being dead and utterly naught. inhabitant of my own thought. I look abroad, and all I see is my creation made for me. Along my thread of life are pearled the moments that make up the world. That's Aldous Huxley's Scenes of the Mind. And in the silence that ensued, have known the endless solitude of being dead and utterly naught, inhabitant of my own thought. I look abroad, and all I see is my creation made for me. Along my thread of life are pearled the moments that make up the world. Yeah, I do like that. He wrote a bunch of poetry, short stories, and other stuff. I think he's mostly known for, Doors of Perception. And did he do Brave New World? I forget now. I think so. I should look that up. Brave New World. That's Huxley, right? Brave New World. And you could see some connections to that story. It's all about the drug. Brave New World is, by Aldous Huxley. In that book, that in the future, there's different kinds of segments of society, like a class structure. I don't really get into that too much. Maybe a little bit during that rant. During the ranting, he kind of goes into that. But in Brave New World, everyone's taking that drug. Is that Soma? Like the Smashing Pumpkins song? I don't know. I forget. It's been a long time. But everyone's taking a drug to keep you happy and numb. It doesn't matter what kind of atrocities are going on. As long as you take your drugs to alter your perception, everything's happy. How's your day going, Paul Garrity? That's the end. That's the end of this crazy story. And we go back to Alabama Shakes, and the song is called Dunes. As the ending credits roll to end season 1. But wait, during the credits, the below scenes will play regarding Garrity's death and the shooting rampage. It's kind of another tribute to the movie Network and how that ended. The last scene of Network, I believe, is just like a screen with 4 television sets, and it's showing different things. I don't remember. One's an advertisement, one of them showing the assassination of Howard Beale. So I'm trying to go for something like that to really give my thanks to a movie like Network, and a performance like that. All right. So as the credits roll, we're now going to go to a subway train. Maybe this is when the animation starts. We can make this an animation to kind of end this season with an animation. I don't know. It's possible. Anyway, we're inside of a subway train. A man in an orange construction vest is staring down at his cell phone. A cardboard ad behind him for Gloritin pills with that purple with the purple teddy bear. And it's given the thumbs up like the Buddy Christ. Gloritin. We view the video on this man's phone screen as a reporter stands near the scene of Garrity's shooting rampage. The reporter is saying, where earlier today it was confirmed that Paul Garrity was indeed shot dead after recklessly spraying his AR-15 up and down this city street behind me. Police are still trying to figure out motive, but speculations abound that this was politically motivated in connection to a radical right-wing militia group in response to calls to overturn the Second Amendment. Now we're on a different city street, or we're on a city street where a woman is waiting in a bus stop looking down at her cell phone. We view the video on her phone screen as a studio anchor interviews a senator regarding this shooting rampage that just happened earlier that day. Studio anchor: Senator, are you really recommending people go buy more guns after this latest shooting? Senator: I know this won't be popular in some areas of the country, but yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. Events like this, tragic as they are, will only make the leftists push harder to take guns away from hard-working Americans. Now we're at a park, as two other women are doing yoga in the grass. Their cell phones are facing them on their mats. So they're doing their yoga poses while they're watching their phone screen. We view the video on one of their screens as a young news host stares directly into the camera, seated behind his news desk. Young news host. It has now been a week since the horrifying shooting rampage by former cable news host Paul Garrity, and maybe the most terrifying response has been the overwhelming number of conspiracy theories spreading all over social media, polluting minds, regardless of political affiliation. From 5G mind control to a false flag government operation, to a fanatical religious plot to drive this nation into another holy war and bring about the apocalypse. Or even Garrity being merely a patsy used by Russian oligarchs to cause more chaos before election season. He pauses briefly for dramatic effect. Young news host. As I speak to you tonight, still shocked by this latest madman's act of senseless violence, the national conversation must evolve into what changes, what progress can the millennials achieve as their diverse voices invade the political arena? How can we rid ourselves of this ongoing surge of paranoia that is seemingly coded into our tribal mentalities? This news host takes off his tie and wraps it around his head. Young news host. Or are we all just living inside of a simulation as we unknowingly wait for the holy programmer to hit the global reset button and start this whole show over once again? Now he removes his shoes and tosses them towards the camera. Young news host. I for one can't say that. I for one can't say that I really give a shit anymore. Is that how you... That doesn't make sense to me now. I, for one, can say that I really don't give a shit anymore. I guess that makes more sense. He rises, revealing he's wearing no pants, only boxer shorts with antenna designs. Young news host. So, as we all drift aimlessly through this artificial realm of spoiled paradigm shifts, it is time once again to play with puppies. The puppy news anchor now walks towards him, wearing a suit decorated with puppy designs, as a dozen cute puppies follow after him. Puppy news anchor. It's puppy time! Now, the news host and the puppy news anchor are dancing together with the puppies, and they're saying, it's puppy time, it's puppy time. Now they fall over and roll around with the puppies. And then the young news host is saying, all hail the holy programmer, all hail the holy programmer. All right, that one got weird. All right, now we're in a worker's cafeteria as a janitor is sitting at a table eating a sandwich. His eyes are down on his phone, and he's surrounded by other workers doing the same. So everyone's sitting in their cafeteria, but no one's talking to each other. They're just looking at their phones in their own worlds, in their own digitalized worlds. This man is viewing, or now we view the video on this man's screen as a podcast host sits in his studio across from the tourist in a red baseball cap. And also his wife is with him. The podcast host begins by saying, so what exactly made you jump into action that day? The tourist in a red baseball cap is saying, I guess I just used my training from my 10 plus years with my paintball team. When you see someone losing their shit like that and trying to hurt other people, you just have to take them out, or, for the greater good of humanity. And all that utility aneurysm philosophical shit. His wife puts her arm around him proudly. Wife, he's always been the best. 5-time paintball championship MVP. The podcast host continues. So you would consider yourself a true champion of utilitarianism philosophy? The tourist in a red baseball cap answers, sure, utilitarianism philosophy, yeah, makes total sense to me, man. The podcast host, and you would do it again if you had to? Tourist in a red baseball cap, no question about it. Listen, I'm all about that peace and love kick, dancing around naked, paying weekly visits to those magical machinos and orgying it up with everyone under the sun. But the world just ain't like that. The podcast host lights up a joint, inhales, and passes it to him. Tourist in a red baseball cap. Shit's crazy, and you can never really know what's happening inside someone's head, especially with this information overload thing constantly twisting up our nervous system. He takes a hit and coughs. Tourist in a red baseball cap. Until they find a way to start invading and policing our thoughts, if they haven't been doing that already. Podcast host. Well, you're talking about telepathy? Now the man is passing the joint to his wife, who takes a hit, and he's saying, this is a tourist in the red baseball cap. Sure am. They put shit like that in movies for a reason. The podcast host continues. The problem I've always had with that whole mind meld theory is, how do you know which thoughts are your own and which ones have been artificially implanted in there to serve someone else's agenda? Tourist in the red baseball cap. Exactly, brother. But I truly believe we all have that madman deep down inside of us, waiting for a chance to erupt out of our gut. Always been like that. Podcast host. Well, I think we might just have to end it there. Again, really appreciate you coming by the studio. The podcast host holds up a small bottle like the size of a 5-hour energy, with the logo of deer antlers and deer piss written in bold on the bottle. Podcast host. I would like to thank our sponsor, Deer Piss, one last time before we go. Now he's reading from a commercial script. Podcast host. If you are interested in achieving the verve of the gods themselves, then you need to drink deer piss each and every morning and each and every night, guaranteed to contain only the most natural, organic reindeer piss from the most mystical and desolate Siberian frontiers. Don't fall victim to all those expensive prescription drugs out there, promising a life free from worry as you surrender both your independent thought and hard-earned money. With deer piss, you can plant the flag of victory over that veil of darkness constantly being pulled over your eyes and seeping into your once brave soul. So drink deer piss and tell your stress level to get fucked. Now he reads the disclaimers in a much faster voice. Podcast host. Hallucinations will occur. If you experience feelings of self-harm, just drink more deer piss. May cause temporary and or permanent blindness, fever, chills, rashes, spiders hatching inside your brain, the inability to form words or operate the simplest of machinery, and total kidney, liver, and heart failure. If you experience death, please stop drinking deer piss and consult your physician at once. The high-pitched shrieking returns one final time, echoing louder and louder and louder and as the black and white static starts to spread on screen until everything turns black and goes silent. So that's how I wanted to end this. I wanted to show exactly what this story is about, the different modes of information dissemination through a podcast, through whatever host you like, through whatever political bubble you exist in. All these people in this cafeteria, these workers, are sitting at cafeteria tables eating their lunch or dinner and whatever it is, and they're all not talking to each other. They're just looking at their phones, viewing their own, whatever they want to view, I guess. I guess that's better than I guess the flip side of that is North Korea or somewhere like that, where you only have one state-sponsored news program, and everyone watches the same thing, and it's like a zombie movie. Everyone gets the same information, and certain information is restricted. But America is the opposite. There's just so much shit. There's so many people trying to get into your head, get into your wallet, get into your daily thoughts, get into your nightly thoughts. You need this drug or you won't be able to sleep. You need this drug or your skin's going to boil. You need this drug even though it might give you suicidal thoughts and all this shit. It's a constant Minority Report if you really think about it. Driving home from work, you're going to be listening to a podcast with advertisements, looking at billboards with advertisements, those digital billboards or the other ones. And then you're going to see people's bumper stickers or check your Facebook page and see other shit. There's just so much shit that can act as a trigger like that. If you really, certain people, it might affect differently. There's certain people that live off that shit. They use that to try to prey on vulnerable people. So that's what I wanted to do with these last few bits of satire. And just to make it funny at the end, it got dark at the end. Garrity hopefully didn't kill anybody, but he did start shooting his fucking gun in the middle of a city like that. So yeah, it's a dark ending to his life, and he gets a bullet in the head. We bookend this series with two dark endings. You saw Bowie in the first episode. What happened to Bowie? He got shot 3 times with a shotgun by these rich people driving in this fancy stagecoach out of Dr. Seuss or something. This surreal moment in an otherwise very plain Western script, but the ending turned into this crazy shit. And now, how did this one end? This one ends with Garrity getting shot in the head by maybe a working class person who's like, all right, this dude is shooting his AR wildly. I need to take him out. You can't blame the guy. That's what you want. If you see a guy getting ready to shoot something up, and this guy would shoot the guy in the head and save the day, you have to look at him as a hero. What else would you look at him as? Even though Garrity was mentally out of his mind, he was still intending to hurt people. Or maybe he wasn't intending to, but he was about to. He could have, if you just shoot a rifle like that. So the guy who shoots him in the head is actually, yeah, it's to save the public good. It's utilitarianism. And yeah, you can't really look at it any other way. I don't know what city you want to set this in, because most cities don't have open carry laws. So you got to kind of find maybe down south. Maybe you make this in Texas. Maybe you make this in like Detroit. I think Detroit is open carry, or parts of Michigan maybe. So I don't know. All those details can be ironed out, or you can just make it up. You don't even have to say what city this is taking place in. I don't know what accents these people have. If this guy's wearing a red hat, meaning like he's a Trump supporter, right? That's people in red baseball caps. So I'm picturing him with like a southern accent. Shit's crazy, man. And you can never really know what's happening in someone's head. I don't know. Maybe he has a southern accent, maybe he doesn't. I kind of picture that Theo Von guy, like his voice. He does another podcast, right? Theo Von. Yeah. I kind of picture his voice a little. He was in some movies, wasn't he? Yeah. Yeah. I think he was a stand-up comedian as well. I kind of picture his voice. He's got a weird voice. It's like a blending of southern accent with like some weird, unique blending of it. So maybe that's what I kind of picture, somebody like him. And he's a podcast though, so he'd be comfortable doing a scene like this. Maybe you get him and Joe Rogan together. Joe Rogan is the podcast host at the end of this, and Theo Von is playing the tourist in a red baseball cap. And to end this whole season. But I like how this book ends. I never thought of it from the type of a class structure. Bowie gets killed by these upper class one percenters in this fancy stagecoach with this fancy shotgun. They just drive by and they're trying to find savages to shoot because they're representing the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, and Bowie's just a obsolete savage. He's not a part of this new society, so they just feel justified in killing him. And that's episode 1. Now we're on episode 12. We're using an Aldous Huxley quote again to end this episode, and Garrity is getting killed by this working class tourist. Just happens to be there with his gun, and he shoots him in the head, almost like he's putting him out of his misery too, in a way, if you want to look at it like that. But I think he's like, all right, this guy's out of his mind. He just shot his rifle blindly. I got to take this guy out, and he takes him out. So it's very similar to the way Bowie died in the first season, but it's also different. It's a different perspective. Bowie actually wasn't really a threat to anybody, but he looked like a threat. Garrity actually was a threat, so I don't think there's going to be any trouble for this guy killing him. No one's going to say, well, you shouldn't have done that. You should have just took him and handcuffed him or something. But, he's not a police officer. So it's a different type of an ending, but also I like the way it ties back to that. I never really thought of it like that until right now. So there you go. Garrity was a hell of a character to write. I think he's a fun role for somebody like a Woody Harrelson or a McConaughey. I mentioned those two, and then I mentioned the guy from Chandler, whatever his name was, from Friday Night Lights. Was it Kyle Chandler? I want to get his name right. Friday Night Lights. Cast. Kyle Chandler, yeah. He looks like Sean Hannity. He has the same eyes, the way his eyes look. He reminds me of Sean Hannity. So he could pull it off. I think he could play this role pretty well. Not that I really know him. I don't really know what else he was in. I think he was in a show I watched as a kid. If it's the same dude, like he would get a newspaper every morning and it would kind of show him some tragedy's going to happen. And then he would go save that person. He was like some angel. If he's the same guy, I could be wrong. There was a show on ABC a long time ago. Maybe I can find it. Like, I remember watching it as a pretty young kid, so it had to be from the 90s. Nah, I don't think I'm going to find it. No, maybe I'm thinking of something else. Early edition, is that what it was? Wow, that's weird. I haven't thought about that in like 2 decades. It just popped in my head. Early Edition was an American fantasy comedy drama on CBS from 96 to 2000, set in Chicago, following the adventures of a man, who mysteriously receives Chicago Sun-Times newspaper the day before it's published. So he gets the newspaper in advance. Think about the insider trading potential. It's kind of like the Biff Tannen getting the sports almanac. So he uses this knowledge to prevent terrible events every day. That's pretty cool. Ian Abrams, Patrick Q. Page, and Vic Rubenfeld. And it was starring, Kyle Chandler as Gary Hobson. It's a good show. I remember watching it. I was probably like I don't know, in my teenage years. That was like a good, wholesome show I used to watch. It lasted for 2 seasons. Maybe I can find it and rewatch this. That's pretty cool. I don't remember if it was really that good or not. But yeah, I remember watching it. It was a good premise. You get the newspaper a day in advance. You could read through it and be like, all right, who do I want to save? It's kind of like utilitarianism. Speaking of that, if you would get the newspaper in advance and you say, all right, there's an 8-year-old kid that's going to get hit by a car and die. There's also a 7-year-old girl who's going to take a bullet by a stray bullet and she's going to die. Who do I save? How do you make that decision? Or do you get somebody else to help you? You're playing God. Free will is like out of the question at that point. You're playing God. You're deciding who you want to save. There is a kind of a utilitarianism mode to that type of thinking. Like you're in ethics class. Who do you save? The 8-year-old boy getting hit by a truck tragically, or the 7-year-old girl who's going to take a stray bullet? Who do you save? You can only save one of them. How do you answer that question? It's impossible. Like, it's whose life is more valuable? You can't answer questions like that. It's just too crazy, man. Yeah. But I kind of see his face too when I think of Garrity now. So, I don't know. I also said Jon Stewart, yeah. Jon Stewart, because he's a part of that. He was a part of that business for like, what, 2 decades, doing the Daily Show and other stuff. He got involved with like the 9/11 workers case because they were all getting cancer from the fumes, and he did a lot of shit like that. So he's well aware of political process, and he could probably pull off a role like this. This is probably the most I've thought about who would play a character, or who I view as a character. I don't know who I saw as Bowie. I don't think I mentioned anybody. Lori, I thought was Winona Ryder. I thought Lori in episode 2 would be Winona Ryder. I kind of pictured her. But this was the most I really thought because of the rant. Like, that's so much fun if you can memorize all that shit. I'm thinking whoever does this scene, you could have somebody standing by the cameras with the cue cards, because we are in a cable news studio. So in case the actor forgets his lines, you could have somebody standing there with cue cards, like old time news. I don't know if they used to do that, but even when people give speeches, there's a teleprompter, right? So that could make it a little easier, but it's like 4 or 5 pages of constant ranting. I did it the best I could. I'm actually curious to hear how I sounded doing this. And yeah, it's a lot of stupid stuff, but there's a bit of my hatred of identity politics. Fuck your age, fuck your name, fuck your race, gender, and sexual orientation, fuck your creed, your nationhood, and anything else you claim so vaingloriously to be such an essential part of your being on your well-maintained and manicured social media profile pages. Yeah, like there's a lot here. Or who do you blame? Do you blame these ignorant news people that put out all these hateful things or on social media? Or do you blame yourself for not only viewing this stuff, but spreading this shit, sending it to other people, or speaking it at Thanksgiving dinner and at the water tower, at your work, around the fucking water machine, whatever it's called, in your office, and everyone's talking their bullshit. So who do you really blame? You could just turn this shit off and do the Timothy Leary thing and just zone out, tune out, whatever it was. drop out, tune in. I always forget what that Timothy Leary thing is from the 60s. So who do you really blame? That's what Garrity's saying. I spent 30 years doing these stupid cable news shows trying to get an agenda out. And am I the one to blame for all the ignorance in the world, all the hatred, all the violence? Or is it you people who eat this shit up? Why do you watch a NASCAR race? Do you enjoy people driving in circles? Or are you hopeful to see a crash? That's kind of a solid example. People watch the news to see all these disastrous events and all these scary tribal feuds and blood rivalries between countries and nations, and who are we supposed to hate this year? Who's our foreign enemy this month? And it just goes on and on like that as you get older until you shut it off. Because why? Why do you want to have that shit in your head anymore? Maybe Garrity was trying to get out at that point, but he was in too deep. He spent his entire life a part of this system, and he can't just leave it and say, well, I'm done. Let me wash my hands clean of this. And Jaguar Woman, what the hell does she represent? I don't really know. Jaguar Woman is the one, she's the wizard. She's the one behind the curtain, keeping everything as ordered as possible, right? But she's a little bit more intimidating than the wizard behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. Jaguar Woman actually seems like she's some kind of other entity. I don't know. At the end, she has Medusa hair. Kind of going back to that. I don't know. I just wanted to have some other villain to represent what Garrity is hearing in his head. She's the chaos that he's experiencing in a physical form. All the high-pitched shrieking that echoes in his head like a tinnitus attack. All the chaos and all the demented thoughts he was experiencing. It's Jaguar Woman is really the one setting all this stuff up in the motion. There's probably some relevance to the Gloritin pills as well. I want to make another episode regarding that. I was planning to do that next season, to have a episode take place in the boardroom meeting, like an animation, and the whole episode is just the conversations that go on inside of a boardroom of a pharmaceutical company as the people are planning a new drug. How do we market this drug, Gloritin? What do we do? How do we market this boner pill? And see if I could do a 50-page script just on that. Because I always say I wish I was a fly on the wall when these people put these commercials together. Side effects may include, I put it in a couple episodes this season. The Lori one had a lot of stuff like that. And it ends on that same note from the podcast host. Hallucinations will occur. If you experience feelings of self-harm, just drink more deer piss. May cause temporary and or permanent blindness, fever, chills, rashes, spiders hatching inside your brain, the inability to form words or operate the simplest of machinery, and total kidney, liver, and heart failure. If you experience death, please stop drinking deer piss at once and consult your physician. Yeah, that's how we end the season. So it's a big part of this. Now, does that play into the Aldous Huxley thing at all? I don't know. Why did I choose that quote? I think I just like the silence that ensued. Garrity was going nuts because he kept hearing these voices and this tinnitus attack. And now he's at peace. And in the silence that ensued, have known the endless solitude. This is the Huxley quote. Of being dead and utterly naught, inhabitant of my own thought. Who's to blame for the dark side of any person? Is it the media? Is it video games? Is it loud music? What's worse? watching a violent movie or watching the news and seeing all these war zones and terrorist attacks and diseases and all this shit, famine, civil war, and all this shit that makes you just want to disappear. And that's supposed to be real as real life can be. Inhabitant of my own thought, I look abroad and all I see is my creation made for me. Along my thread of life are pearled the moments that make up the world. I just like the rhythm of this, really. I was getting really into Huxley stuff. After reading The Doors of Perception, I was reading other stuff. Maybe short stories he wrote or poetry, and I don't know. I was in that mode back then, so I was like, let me just bookend this season with Huxley quotes. And that's really the only explanation for that. There's nothing deeper than that. We started season 1, episode 1 with The Last Prisoner, and on that very first shot, when people would be introduced to this new show, the Madman's Daily Unequivocal Comedy, it starts with a Huxley quote that says, wherever the choice has had to be made between the man of reason and the madman, the world has unhesitatingly followed the madman. That's more related to the first episode. I don't know if that really relates to the Garrity situation, his character. He was definitely the madman, but like the tourist said at the end, everyone has that inside of them. So we're all the madman. We all have some complicity in the madness of the world, whether we even know it or not. Everyone's complicit to some degree. And you can justify that with being stoic. I'm a stoic, I'm a skeptic, I'm a nihilist. But it doesn't hide that everyone has some complicity in the madness of the world. It's kind of a negative way to look at things, but it's probably true. We might not even know what we're doing, but maybe we buy something and it's made with slave labor. Maybe we support a politician or a party, and then we get disillusioned later because we learn how much bullshit is involved in the whole process. I don't know, maybe I'm not really making sense here, connecting the dots like I'm trying to do. But at least I will leave it at that. The simplest notion was everyone's got that madman inside of you and waiting to come out, whether you have a bad temper or you're just a huge asshole, cynic. You like to fuck with people. You like to prey on vulnerable people. Whatever your madman feeds off of, you're a narcissist. You spend your days, I don't know, on social media, you're that priest that I talked about before who wasted 40 grand playing Candy Crush from church funds. He got addicted to Candy Crush, poor guy. There's a bit of madness and all that stuff. Things become normal because society says it's normal to live like this. Whatever that belief structure is, if enough people believe in something, isn't there a quote like that? If enough people believe in something, it becomes truth, or something like that. Or there's the famous Nazi quote from one of those guys, like, the bigger the lie, the easier it is to convince people. I forget who said that. It's one of those Nazi guys. One of the really evil dudes. I don't know his name. The bigger the lie, the easier it is to convince people it's true. It's something like that. There's a lot of truth in that, because the bigger the lie, the scarier it is, and people will believe it when they think their lives are on the line. Yeah. I don't know who said that. It might have been Hitler himself, yeah. It was a part of Nazi propaganda, yeah. Because a lie is so outrageous and boldly stated, but that could be any political party, really. You could say some communist said that or some capitalist mogul said that. But I just remember it from, like, I don't know, from one of my classes in school, probably. Because a lie is so outrageous and boldly stated, the average person assumes no one would dare fabricate something so significant, leading them to believe there must be a grain of truth to it. Yeah, it makes sense in terms of human psychology. I don't know what examples to point towards there. I was going to say War of the Worlds again, but I don't think that was a malevolent thing, like the CIA's testing the propaganda ability of the radio. So they're going to do this radio broadcast with Orson Welles, and the aliens are invading. The aliens are invading, people. Run for your lives. The green men have finally reached Earth. And people were like going nuts. I don't know how true that is. Did War of the Worlds really cause like riots and stuff? I should know this since I included this in this story. I don't know if I actually looked it up at any point of this writing process. Like, how would you consider that today? Or what would you compare that to today? All right. Yes. While Orson Welles' famous 1938 radio broadcast is generally considered a myth that caused widespread riots, maybe it's just a myth then. A highly similar broadcast in Ecuador a decade later did actually incite deadly riots. That's according to Reddit. Orson Welles dramatized reading. So all he was doing was reading H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds, and some people thought it was a real Martian invasion. According to Google, no, it did not cause riots, but some scared listeners called the police or fled their homes. And because print media was losing advertising dollars to radio, newspapers sensationalized the event to discredit radio as a trustworthy news source. See, I fell for it too. But it's still a good symbolic element that the power of disinformation, whether it's purposeful or not, can cause like chaos in certain communities. I don't know, I never heard about this thing in Ecuador. I don't know if it's really true or not. So I don't really want to look it up right now. But there was recently, because April Fool's just passed not too long ago, and I was looking at this YouTube video it was a podcast of the top 10 or 20 moments when the news played April Fool's tricks on people. And some of them actually did cause a panic. There was one funny one that in the BBC, there was a story on April Fool's Day. They were going to change the Big Ben clock tower to digital clock, which sounds so stupid, but some people believed it. And they were like calling the BBC like, no, you can't desecrate our holy monument. Something stupid like that. But you never know. Some people might think a joke is true. Some people might think that the truth is a joke. Depending on where the information's coming from. The boy who cried wolf, who's going to trust that guy? He's not going to be able to be on CNN. The boy who cried wolf, yeah, he's going to have a hard time gaining his legitimacy back. Best of April Fools. Maybe I can think of better examples. April Fool jokes on the news. This might have been during the 80s when people were more gullible, I guess. Not that people aren't today. This was another BBC one from 1957. There was a news report on April Fool's Day that spaghetti grows on trees. And I think people actually believed it and were asking where these fucking trees were. Where do I get the spaghetti tree? That will be pretty cool. Can scientists engineer that? Monsanto? Can they genetically engineer spaghetti trees with marinara sauce or fettuccine Alfredo, whatever? There was an NPR news report tricking listeners to think that Richard Nixon was running for president in 1992. Wasn't he dead? I don't know when he died. So they actually had a video of trees in Switzerland and spaghetti harvesting from the trees. That's awesome. That's pretty. Whoever came up with that should have become like Prime Minister of Britain. Yeah, that was the one I mentioned. 1980, BBC News said that Big Ben was gonna was going to be modernized with a digital display. That's pretty funny. And that the clock bells would be replaced by beeps. It's because the people are so persuasive, especially the BBC, man. Those people have like Jedi mind tricks. They use those fancy accents. In other news, the BBC reports today that I can't do a British accent, that London's iconic Big Ben will turn into a digital clock. What else? Anything else good here? Yeah, the Nixon one I never heard about before. There's got to be some better ones. Well, today I think the better example is deep fake videos and stuff like that. You could really fool people. You could actually create somebody who died. You could bring them back through artificial intelligence and have them say anything you want. That type of video like that. So that's more of the connection. If I want to make some connection to the War of the Worlds broadcast in the 20s or 30s, today it's a deep fake. And those are more malevolent. Like you could really fool somebody because they're actually seeing a person that they might know saying something like that. In 1976, this is pretty good. Renowned astronomer and beloved presenter of The Sky at Night, Patrick Moore, had the credibility and stern air of authority which allowed him to pull off a prank. In 1976, Moore told radio listeners that due to a rare planetary alignment of Pluto and Jupiter, the Earth would experience a shift in its gravitational forces that morning, allowing them to float into the air. So people could just float in the air. At 9:47 a.m., Moore instructed the listeners to jump now. Within minutes, calls were coming in that they had felt the impact. One caller claimed that she and her 11 friends had orbited gently around the room. What the fuck, man? Another complained that he had risen so high that he hit his head on the ceiling and demanded compensation. People are trying to get lawsuits from this shit. That's pretty funny, man. I think there was a fake report of a volcanic eruption. Yeah, that's pretty good. 1974. Yeah, you can never go wrong with that. But yeah, there's relevance to me looking up these stupid things because that's a part of the media manipulation, whether it's a joke or the bigger the lie, the easier it is to fool people. It's a statement about cynicism, painting cynicism as a positive thing, that you should have some cynicism deep down to some degree when it comes to watching anything or hearing anyone, your neighbor, even people that you think you trust more than anyone, even yourself. You might not be able to trust yourself at some points in your life. That's when things get weird, I think. My case, yeah, I never really experienced that until COVID times. That's when the thing that really got me freaked out was when you feel like you can't even trust yourself anymore. That's when you lose your mind. Your feeling of insecurities a balloon so great that you're like, I don't even know if I want to be alone with my thoughts right now. That's when things get critical. And yeah, that's where I was in 2020, where things were just all fucked up and all kinds of things led to this. But that was the um, ultimate consequence of all this shit, was this ballooning of a paranoia and anxiety that just led me to not even trust myself. And you never want to be in that position. It's almost like a form of self-destruction. A self-destructive gambler, self-destructive alcoholic, self-destructive anything. Yeah, you mix that with some kind of a traumatic event or a big scandal or a pandemic or anything like that shit, and it's going to really balloon and get crazy. So I said there's a personal connection to this story. I'm not Garrity, just like I'm not Bowie in the first season. I'm not Lori. I'm not any of these characters. I'm not Man or Deer. I'm not a deer trying to go to Atlantic City to become a musician. But there's pieces of me in these characters. I'm not Hilda or Flora. I'm not any of these people. I'm not even the guy from Rinsen or The Rates Refrain Part 2, Yannick. He wants to be a musician composer, and he's working to that towards that goal. It sounds a lot like me, but I'm not that guy. It's just I needed to give him a motivation, a conflict. I'm not Joe from Marathon. I'm not a chain-smoking marathon runner. Although there is actually a Chinese guy that I learned actually doing that. I don't know if he does it anymore, but he ran a marathon while smoking cigarettes the whole time, like 30 cigarettes, like 3.5 hours, which I probably couldn't even do without smoking or doing anything. I'm not Todd from Once in a Lifetime. I'm none of those characters. Edward III. I'm not those cave people. I'm not Lamb or Caleb or Bew. I'm not Manny in Rinse and Repeat Part 2. I'm not Deborah, the prostitute, the drunk. I'm not Jackie Crow, the Rizzo Trump figure. I'm not, who was it yesterday? I'm not Coach Daniels or the Russ character or any of those characters, any of those kids. And today, the story I just read, Garrity, I'm not Garrity. But there's a bit of me in all of these stories, definitely. I'm not writing from personal experience, but there are pieces of me, of experiences I went through or parts of my psyche that even back then it was more apparent. 2021, I was still going through some shit. As soon as I got let go from my job, it was still a very weird time in my life. So, of course, I'm not any of those characters in any of these episodes, but there's a piece of me in all of these episodes, whether in the story, the conflict, or some of the songs even, or some of the manipulations that some of these characters went through social media and through the television. I feel like Stanley Kubrick was warning people about screens through 2001 and through A Clockwork Orange. If you really boil it down, there's a lot of different themes in those movies, but I think he was just letting people know we're all going to be manipulated by screens at some point of our lives. That's probably why people run away and go off grid and try to form their own reality, which is kind of what I was trying to do myself. I just failed. My Kickstarter didn't get me $1. I was trying to get $500,000 to do my 20-year plan, which wasn't really involving these screenplays as much, because what can I do by myself? Nothing. I can't make these movies by myself. I can't make anything like this. All I can do is write and share these stories and hope for the best and read these out loud so people see where I'm coming from. And I think it was a good exploration as I did this for the last 2 or 3 weeks like this. It was definitely worth it. I feel more comfortable speaking and reading. Maybe I can try to do my audiobook now. I'm going to have to I'm a little hesitant on that one, but I might try to do it at some point. To read my audiobook, to read a chapter a day, it'd probably take me a month or 2 months to really get good at it, because I don't think I'm going to be solid on the first take. I'm messing up stuff all the time when I go through the dialogue, and yeah, it's tough, man. I give a lot of credit to voice actors. It's got to be a very hard skill to become a master at. I'm more comfortable doing this, even though I do ramble. It doesn't sound like I'm thinking before I speak, but there's a little bit of thinking going on in my head. Sometimes I do the mad ramble where my mouth just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. But I am thinking a little bit at least. Might not seem like it. I don't blame you for thinking that I don't think my thoughts out clearly as I speak them. Yeah, I got a kind of a problem with that. Imagine if I was caffeinated. It's good that I don't drink caffeine, because I'd be way fucked up. I'd be like trying to read any of this shit. I'd be a complete mess. Because right now I'm not used to caffeine. Once you introduce it back to your system, it's like you're 8 years old again, learning this new drug, and oh my God, I feel like I can run 20 miles right now. But then that caffeine fades, and then you need more and more and more. Like any other drug, you gain that tolerance, and then you could get to the point in your life where you're drinking espresso at nighttime, and it doesn't even do anything. But yeah, I think I'm happy being without caffeine right now. I never understood the baseball thing that I talked about. Like, I feel like baseball players have to get in this zone mentally and just be in this zen place to see this ball coming at them at 100 miles an hour. I feel like you have to be in this like Jedi mind trick place. I don't know how speed and coffee helps that. Because people in the 80s were doing that shit. Why did baseball players take amphetamines? That seems so stupid to me. Maybe in hockey or something. Or chewing tobacco, I could see that. That kind of calms their nerves down. Why did baseball players take amphetamines? Well, steroids, yeah, that kind of makes sense. It's still a terrible thing. But why would they take amphetamines? Like, was it really helping people? Yeah, amphetamines. They were called greenies to combat physical and mental fatigue, to sharpen their reflexes, to boost energy. Yeah, I think it was hot in the 80s, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Like, I'm sure some people smoked a little pot. Like, I don't want to say Allen Iverson, but that was always the thing with Iverson, right? Maybe he was smoking a little herb before he played. I don't know how true that is. But some people get balanced by that. It's weird. I don't know. I'm going to have to... I don't want to, accuse him of doing that if it's not true. I don't know if he ever talked about it before games. I know he wasn't going to practice. We talking practice? Did Iverson smoke marijuana before games? There's no evidence, so yeah, I'm just talking out of my ass. But there's no evidence that Iverson ever smoked marijuana before or during NBA games, while Iverson openly admitted to smoking pot daily during his early playing days. He stated that it never felt like a responsible option for him to consume. Alright, that makes sense. During an interview with GQ, he said he used to smoke every day as a younger player. I don't know if that would help. Like, I'm just looking at myself. If I smoked pot, I would just get paranoid. If I was around people, I would just like get up and leave. Like, do the Irish goodbye and just, where did Ray go? So I would just disappear because I got too paranoid, and really it was just to watch movies or something, listen to music. That's all I really liked it for. But not when I was around people. Some people like that feeling if you can get used to it, but I don't do that shit. I know I told that story about the pitcher that took LSD and he pitched a no-hitter, but there's a story about John Kruk, I think, like that. Instead of LSD, like he stayed up all night playing wiffle ball, and then the next day he thought he had off, but he had to play. And yeah, it's actually a pretty funny story. John Kruk, wiffle ball story. Let's see if that brings up anything. I bought a book a while ago about the 93 Phillies, but I never gave it a chance to read yet. Yeah, John Kruk famously stayed up all night drinking and playing an intense 45-inning wiffle ball game in the Phillies clubhouse with the stadium staff until 7 a.m. That's awesome. When Kruk showed up for a day game, he found out he had to play due to an injury to another player. So he warned the starting pitcher, if you want to win this game, you don't want them to hit it to me. That's awesome. Kruk's wiffle ball marathons were legendary among the 93 Phillies. To dive deeper into the wild, behind-the-scenes stories of the 93 Phillies, click here. That's pretty funny, man. That's one of the greatest stories I've ever heard. Like that's why I bought that book. I figured there's got to be so many great stories about the 93 Phillies. And John Kruk was like the most charismatic character of that whole team. That's awesome. 45-inning wiffle ball game. Just getting drunk all night and playing wiffle ball. That's awesome. All right. I don't know what else to talk about here. I'm just imagining what that would look like on if somebody actually documented these events. Kruk getting all drunk, playing wiffle ball for like 7 hours straight. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Got to give credit to that guy. Plus, he was on Aqua Teen Hunger Force with Nico Case, and they chopped off his nipples. That was a great episode. All right, I think I'm going to close this down. It's been a good experience overall. Went down some weird places, learned to speak a little bit better, learned to read a little bit better, kind of see what I'm lacking as a writer and as a reader, because it's not easy to do either of those things. I have a much deeper respect for people who do audiobooks and read, or that's their job as a voice actor, to read other stuff, or narrators in the documentary, even the movie voice guy, or the monster truck guy. Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. And yeah, you can make money if you have that skill. I'm going to keep practicing. I was very wary to do this, but I'm even more hesitant to do the audiobook. The audiobook is for my book I wrote 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now. It was the anthology of all my lyrics, over 50 albums, and it's like 1,000 pages. Half the book is my lyrics, song lyrics, and poetry. So I don't know how to go about that. I'm going to practice it though. Maybe I can find a voice to get me through it. To learn breath control. Because if you're making an audiobook, you have to do it professionally to get people to buy it. Or they're going to buy it and be like, why did I buy this shit? And they're going to get very angry. And then if you try to sell something later, they're going to, this guy, he's the one that wrote that crappy, or who recited the crappy audiobook. So that's why I'm more tentative in that regard. I want to be able to do it as professionally as possible without the bullshit in my life. Because, I need to make money off of it somehow. It's easier to have someone read a book for you than to actually read it yourself. People could be driving. I guess that's the most useful for me, at least, is when I would take the subway to work or driving on a road trip. Audiobooks are pretty good for that. Keep your mind focused, like a companion. Whenever I took my road trips in the past, it was just by myself. So I looked at that as a chance to write music and to listen to music and to listen to other stuff. Drive to North Carolina through the Blue Ridge Mountains and all that shit. And a lot of those trips, I did form songs from driving away. The farther you get away from your normal daily life, you get a different perspective, and it gives you a chance to kind of decompress, if that's the right word. But I can't do that at the moment. For a long time, I haven't been able to do that. The road trips were like my way to just get out of my head and experience something new scenery, change of scenery, which I always talk about. So the way I'm doing that now is through my writing. It's not as fun, but that's what I want to do, so I got to get some practice at it. It's definitely more fun to just get in a car and just drive, whether you have a destination or not, before you get too old and scared to do that shit, before every ounce of that free spirit is gone inside your body. Because I still have that. I still have that desire to do that shit. If I did my Kickstarter, I would have driven across the country myself. And I don't know now if once I get a job out, wherever I go, Arizona or New Mexico or California, most likely I'm just taking a bus because everything's too expensive now. I'm just going to have to rely on public transportation, which is better. I don't have to deal with all the other bullshit. But yeah, it's different. When the plan I had for my Kickstarter, I would have been living off grid in the desert, and I kind of needed some kind of vehicle. I don't think Amazon would come out there. I don't want to be relying on an Amazon delivery for water. I'm going to be like day 5 without water or food. Where the fuck is Amazon? God damn it. And I just wander the desert, and coyotes eat me, and then those people come and take all my organs and harvest my liver and kidneys, and there you go. My dream went to shit. So, I was trying to think of the best way to do things, the most affordable way to do things. Because even if you have a vehicle, you can still be a minimalist with your vehicle. And that's what I was trying to think the best way to do it. Get months supply at a time, so you don't have to really venture into the society too often. But yeah, and plus I also wanted to compost stuff and grow my own food at some point. But yeah, that's what everyone says, but it's not that easy. It's easy to think about it, but it's not that easy to actually do it and live off of that shit. In the middle of the fucking desert, I'll be like the hippies in Easy Rider, trying to grow crops in the middle of the desert And Peter Fonda's telling them, I don't think anything's going to grow here. You probably want to move somewhere else. Shut up, Square. Don't tell us we can't grow crops in the desert. We got peace and love inside of us. We're stardust, man. Don't you know we all came from stars? We're stardust, man. Fuck you, Peter Fonda. Who brought this guy? He's such a normie. So, yeah, who knows? Who knows where it's going to go next? But I was thinking my next project would be going through some of my concept albums. But now I'm more leaning towards the audiobook, since that could be a means of financial potential, at least. If I can do it in a professional way, it would present my work in a lot different of a fashion than, hey, nobody knows me, why don't you read this 1,000-page book? Which usually doesn't happen until an artist has done their career, like the Springsteen biography that I read, and he's like, all right, let me write my life story. But that's not what this is. This is just an anthology of all of my song lyrics that I want to actually create into songs. So that's my next project, I think. It's not going to be easy, but this was a big help to go through this part. I'm not trying to make money off any of this stuff, so there wasn't any pressure on it. But I would have to handle the audiobook in a more organized structure to really make sure I'm doing everything correctly. I don't even know if I can use the microphone on my phone. These recordings aren't very professional. I'm using my cell phone microphone. I'm using no filter, nothing like that. I might have to download a program. There are programs like that for podcasts where you can clean up your audio. So it's probably something I got to invest in to make everything sound as pleasurable as possible. I'm not a big audiobook guy, so I got to do some research on it. And yeah, all right, that's the end of this. It was a good experience to get through these 12 episodes and my 3 movie ideas, the 3 features, but any of these could be a movie. This could be like a new type of network 2, Revenge of Social Media, or Birth of the Social Media. I don't know. Could this be a full-length feature? It's only like 50-some pages, and it is kind of weird. But if somebody said, we really like this character, we want you to kind of, go deeper into his life and what happened to his marriage, how come he's living alone, you got to put something there. Like, yeah, but do you really? Like, his wife probably left him because he's an asshole. Or maybe he's just never been married. I don't know. Because I thought about that too. I set up that love story with Zanya and Garrity. And I'm like, well, did Garrity have a wife ever? Did he have kids? But I decided to just leave it vague, and who cares? This is not a story about the epic of Paul Garrity, his love and loss, and his family drama, and all that shit. Paul Garrity is just a vehicle I used, just like Spielberg used a shark in Jaws. There's no backstory about this fucking great white shark. He's just representing chaos and nature and whatever all those political connections were that I spoke about yesterday, capitalism versus safety. And Paul Garrity is similar. He's just a plot device. I love his character. I'm not saying it in that degree, but this story is not like his biography. Oh, where's his wife in this story? What about his kids? Did he have a divorce? What's this drug he's taking? You have to flesh that out more. I don't like that type of writing. I really don't. It's not me being lazy. It's an insult to the audience if you just give them the same shit over and over again. And like the audience can make this can kind of just put their own backstory to it. I did the same thing in Elegant Eccentrics with Gillian's character, the 14-year-old grifter. Nobody knows why she's on the street. Did she live in an orphanage? Did her parents abuse her so she left? Was she in a juvenile detention lockup? Or she just ran away from home because she felt like running away? Like any of those options could be her backstory. But I did put a scene in there where she's watching like a dad and his young daughter eating French fries, and she started crying at it. So I'm kind of leaning towards, yeah, she's probably an orphan, and she's getting tired of living in not a halfway house, whatever it's called. She's living in a boarding house for orphans and people without families, whatever it's called. And she just got tired of living there. So maybe she just left. She just said, I'm old enough to be on my own and I'm going to leave. And she's still longing for some kind of familial presence, I guess. But yeah, do I really need to spend 10, 15 minutes in the movie showing her in an orphanage and showing her having these conflicts? I don't think you do. Unless the story is just about her and you really have to fill out the pages like that. But why does anyone become homeless or live on the street, grifting and conning people? I don't know. There's plenty of reasons for that, I guess. But I don't like it when movies are so ABC and treating the audience like they're stupid. They need everything explained to them. I don't like that. I think you're insulting the audience's intelligence. I'm just looking at my own self. I've watched a lot of stuff in my life, and sometimes it's cool to leave it vague. It's not lazy writing. I think it's lazy writing when you just feel like you have to patty cake the story to an audience like they've never seen it before. Oh, she's a 14-year-old girl living on the street. Where's her parents? Why isn't she in school? Well, does she have some kind of mental disease? What a poor kid. You have to tell me more about her life. No, just watch the damn movie. Watch the damn movie. Enjoy the story. She's not the only character anyway, but that's not the point of the story I'm writing. Like, I don't know. That's just my mentality with writing. I go see a movie because I want to escape, not because I want to learn about all these characters' backstories, compare it to my own life, compare it to my own trauma. I'm going there to forget about my shit. I want to sit in a movie theater for 2 hours and forget about my life, forget about my own identity, and not compare anything to myself. I want to live through other people and other people's experiences. When I'm watching a baseball game, I don't care what Kyle Schwarber's childhood is. I just want to see him be the Schwarbarian and crush the baseball. Like, I don't care about that shit. Sometimes they bring human interest to sports, and that's fine. During the Olympics, they always have that human interest stories about when the kid was 5 years old, she started swimming and she was a natural, and whatever. And tragedy hit when she was 8, when her grandmother gave birth to twins, but they were Siamese twins, and they only had one eyeball to share amongst the two. And Bob Costas is tearing up as he's interviewing the twins. And then you see the athlete, this is my inspiration for winning the gold medal. And everyone at home is crying and hugging their kids. Oh, I'm so glad I got 2 eyeballs. I'm so blessed. I love this country. God bless America. So yeah, human interest stories are there because you want to make everyone feel warm and comfy, and that's all good. But I don't write like that. That's my own personal stylings. Like, I'm not writing a novel in any of these scripts. I'm not writing a novel where I need to fill up 500 pages with all these backstories. I'm just trying to tell a story very quickly with the minimalist attitude, the minimalist philosophy in writing, and that's all I'm trying to do. I was going to compare that to my songwriting. Am I minimalist with my lyrics and stuff? Sometimes I do get wordy though. I did an album called Tribute Velvet, which was me trying to write like Lou Reed, Velvet Underground songs, and some of them are very, very wordy. They go on forever. But that's the Velvet Underground. I was trying to interpret them through my own style. There's a one song by them, but I forget. I don't feel like looking it up right now. That really inspired me, so that's why I decided to do that. But in the long run, yeah, I think I am a minimalist. Right now, I'm putting together the early stages of my first new album, concept album, with 80s new wave songs. Right now, I don't really have anything yet, just song titles and some random doodles, and that one will probably be minimalist, 3-4 minute songs with minimal lyrics, because 80s new wave to me is like more about the feel and the synthesizers and the production, and I don't care about the lyrics. They're all going to say the same thing probably. Like maybe Tears for Fears got a little bit different with some of their stuff. But yeah, it's hard to be, that's a good way to close this. It's hard to be a unique voice in music or any kind of art form. It's hard to be unique because how do you form a unique voice when you're building off of other stuff that you've consumed throughout your life? If all you watched in your life was Columbo and then you go to write a comedy, how are you going to be funny? Like, there is some comedy in that show, but if all you watch your entire life was like Matlock or Columbo, you're probably going to write stuff like that. It's just natural. If I never watched anything else besides Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, if I never was exposed to anything else, because that's all I really watched when I was a kid, if I never grew out of that stage and I just stayed in that childlike mentality and all I watched and all I listened to was Ninja Turtle stuff, Vanilla Ice, go Ninja, go. And all I watch is Ninja Turtle cartoons and all the movies. And then I try to write a script like this, it would never exist. If I never watched Network, if I never watched Black Mirror, if I never watched, I don't know, that 25th Hour by Spike Lee and other great rants like that, I don't think I could have wrote this script or any of these things that I've written and shared over these last few weeks. I don't think I could have done any of it, of course. It's just going to appear magically from my brain like divine inspiration. I don't think so. I don't think it works like that. I think you have to put the time in to not only consume entertainment, but to analyze it, because you have to be a nerd about it. You can watch 2001: A Space Odyssey and say, yeah, that was cool images. Or you could be like me and have to figure out, wait, what was that about? What was the symbolic message of that dude at the end? It was like some painting, wasn't it? I think it is based on a painting. But there's a guy who made a whole web series on the hidden meanings of 2001, Kubrick. Just like there was a documentary about The Shining. It's supposed to be about the fake moon landing, according to one documentary, that Kubrick had inside knowledge that the moon landing was really in a Hollywood set and he was a part of it somehow. He's putting these clues in The Shining. That's when you become nerdy, when you really become obsessed with something like that. And it's really good to be like that. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I used to, when I got into Stranger Things, I would watch like the after show where the writers and creators would talk about the episode and talk to some of the actors and shit. Like, it's good to really get the inside look at that shit. Or when I watched the table read, which was really maybe the main reason I did this whole thing. I watched the table read of Better Call Saul, season 1, maybe the first episode, or one of those, I forget what it was. And it just really struck a chord with me, like, wow, this is so cool. They're just normal people. They're just normal people sitting around a table reading a script, and then they're going to turn that into a crazy, entertaining show with amazing cinematography and directing. And yeah, it's cool to see the process. If you're not a part of that industry, because I'm not, even though I want to be, as an outsider, yeah, when you can see those table reads and stuff like that, I need to watch more of them. I'm sure there is plenty of examples. That was the one I happened to find for some reason. And it's still on YouTube. Look up Better Call Saul table read, and you could watch the whole cast reading the script, whatever episode it was, before they went to film it, so they can, get the flow of it, I guess. And yeah, that was very cool to me. I'm sure it's not as great when it's just me reading all these lines and I have to say the person's name that I'm reading, Garrity, and then I read the dialogue, and then Zanya, and then I read the dialogue. Yeah, it doesn't flow like a table read, but what was I supposed to do? Pretend, use different voices? I couldn't do all that shit. So this was the best I think I could have done, and I think I got better as I went. But regardless, it was a good experience, and I'm glad I somehow decided to do this for some reason. And just to be able to give myself a better look at what I'm trying to create, because it's hard to keep all this stuff in your brain. You have to get it out there to release it, whether it's a song that's sticking in your head or you have this great story concept. Well, then go put it on paper, man, because it might keep you up at night if you don't release it. I'm conflicted with that because a couple months ago I had this great idea for a movie called Auntie's Angst. It was the first screenplay I thought of in a long time, and I was like really excited about it. I still like it. It's kind of the sequel to Seeds of Anarchy. I wanted to make a punk trilogy, Seeds of Anarchy, then this one, and then another one where Jello Biafra plays like a priest, a punk rock priest or some shit, and creating his own religion of punk rock or some shit like that, I forget. And I really like this Auntie's Angst. It was based on, I was training to be a nurse at that point, which I gave up on. But at that point, I was like thinking of this older lady in a nursing home, and I was building this whole complex storyline that she had some kind of a mental illness, dementia or some shit. But what was this illness really? And it's not fresh in my head, but I'm not motivated to go write the story because it's just going to sit. And then like 2 years from now, I'm going to be like, oh yeah, I did write that screenplay. Hey, let me read it out loud on my Substack. Like, I don't know how to get past that next level. So there is no motivation to go do it. I could have gone to the library every day and wrote that script, and I'd probably be done by now. Probably, like, it would have taken me a month or so, but when there's no financial incentive and you can't survive off of that, it gets totally pushed to the background of your brain, where I haven't thought about this in weeks from now. In weeks, probably. But that's just how it is. If you can't make money, and what the fuck, I would still my plan now is just to move out west, get a regular job, and continue pushing on this. Maybe a change of scenery would help me. I could meet new people that could push me in the right direction. And that's kind of where I'm stuck at this point. But I think this was I'm not going to whine about this stuff anymore or vent my frustrations. I'm just trying to get that point across that the manic type of experience I had from 2021, 2022 till 2025, that 5 years of like nonstop work, whether I was writing these scripts or writing my book or other stuff, putting my old music files together and all that shit, which was a part of writing my book. But would I be able to do that again? The only way I would even attempt doing that type of shit again is to make money off of it, if I knew I could make money. So the first part of the process is to make money off of this stuff. So I know a path. There is a path if I spend my time writing and writing all day and forming all these other episodes that I have in mind, because it's not easy to do any of this shit. I need to know what kind of a future I have in this career path. And it's frustrating because I do want to write that story. I'm just like, I can't convince myself to spend a month of my life to do it where it's not going to go anywhere. It's that type of paradox. I can justify doing this because I already wrote this. The hard part's done. All I'm doing now is reading it aloud to bring it more alive, like it's a real breathing work of art, because I brought it to life with my really shitty dialogue reading. But it's still better than just words on a paper. People will at least get to know my personality a little better. But in the long run, yeah, to do this again, it's only in the cards if it's in the cards in terms of making money off of it. So that's where I'm at. It's a weird place right now. Yeah, you kind of feel stuck, but you're like, you want to keep fighting to get to this place, but you don't know what to even fight against. That's the real weird type of it's complex. It's a very complex thing. I don't even know what my conflict is or what I'm fighting against. It's really odd. Like, that's why people have contracts, I guess. Because I don't know which one of these scripts would be the origin of I spoke about that before. Which one of these will be my origin story? I still think it's Marathon because I had that spark that, hey, the Olympics is coming in 2 years to Los Angeles. What better way to ring in the Olympic cheer than to write this existential marathon story to turn into a movie with a young actor, chain-smoking marathon runner. It's in no way promoting that, but it's a funny look at that time period. And some other themes, a lot of other themes. You know, I already went through that. If you didn't hear about the marathon stuff, go listen to that one. But I feel like that'll be my origin story because it's the most capable at this time right now. I'm sure there's Hollywood studios that are like, or independent studios or anything, that are saying, hey, we need Olympic stories. We have the Olympics coming to America in 2028. Let's get some movies related to that. Well, dude, I got one. It's really good. It wouldn't be that big of a production, and you know, so that's what I'm thinking in my head. But yeah, I can't make these myself. All I can do is this. But hopefully it was a good ride for anyone who actually listens to this. And I'm trying to improve with my inflections, my tone, and the volume of my voice. All these things are a concern for me. Hopefully I got a little bit better. And we'll see where it goes in the future. But I'm glad that I chose to put Garrity as the last episode because there's a lot of similarities in the themes of this episode and things I went through and things I've learned from my past experiences to not fall down the same traps again. I'm not going to freak out, not going to get paranoid or anxious over anything. I say that now. When the shit hits the fan, the shit hits the fan, everything kind of goes up in smoke at that point. But I've kind of been through that already as well, so I don't know. The reason I like Garrity so much as a character is because he's considered an obsolete voice. His voice is no longer deemed essential in his industry, and that happens to a lot of people. Garrity is the old dinosaur of cable news. He's in his 60s and his voice is no longer deemed essential by the up-and-coming voices of the new generation. I guess they're trying to hold on for dear life, as is, like he had that one line that, well, can't we just freeze our audience and then defrost them when the ratings get really bad? I thought that was pretty funny. But it's true. And a lot of it is image, because you can have somebody that age group, but they can relate to the younger generation. A lot of it is imaging, and the way somebody approaches speaking information to the public. It's not just your political outlook and your philosophy on life. A lot of it is image. A lot of it is how you look and who you know and what you can present as an influencer. And Garrity didn't have that anymore. At one point, he was probably the biggest influencer in terms of a cable news dynamic. Before social media came, that became an actual job to be an influencer. Garrity was the original OG influencer. Like Rush Limbaugh was a huge influence on a lot of people. You could call him, he wasn't online doing that shit, but he was an influencer. He made millions and millions and millions from books and his radio show and other shit, because he had such a large following of people. I'm the opposite. Nobody knows me, nobody listens to this shit. But I'm not trying to be Rush Limbaugh either. I just want to get this shit out to the right people, man. Make some cool shit, and then make some money off of that, and then make some more cool shit. And then keep going and going until my brain finally does. Once my brain goes dull completely. But I don't plan on that until I'm in my 90s. Hopefully, I can get to that point. Once your brain's gone, then what's the fucking point, really? So, yeah, hopefully I can get a good 20, 30 years of more creative juices flowing, because it's not a work ethic thing. I'm definitely a hard-working person. It's not a work ethic thing that's holding me back. It's not my passion or my fight or my dedication. It's just I don't know the path to go at all. I don't even know what road to go down to start. So it's an issue. To keep doing this, you need to know some kind of a plan, and I don't know what that plan is. But I'm also a go with the flow guy, that eventually things would work out if you work hard enough. So there's competing voices within my head as well, just like Garrity. Garrity, many times in this story, had competing voices inside of him, especially towards the end. And I'm not exactly in that case. I'm not Kurt Cobain making friends with the voices in his head, but maybe I should. It's better to have friends inside your head than enemies or voices that you can't stand. But I'm gonna stop here because I'm not really making sense anymore. I'm probably done with any kind of relevant conversation. So anyone who listened, thanks. Um, any feedback would also be cool. Yeah, I might not read. Like I might have said earlier, like yeah, the comment sections are so crappy, but maybe it's better to have that than nothing. To have complete air, like they say in Philadelphia, it's better to boo than if the fans are just sitting on their hands, not paying attention. Athletes in Philly learn that when they boo you, it means the fans actually give a shit. That's why people like to play there. I think certain personality types like it. Like John Kruk gave a speech. Speaking of John Kruk earlier, when he retired and they put his number in the Wall of Fame in Citizens Bank Park, he gave a speech like that. That if you're not able to make it in Philly, it's probably because you're just not strong enough to handle the passion of the fans or something like that. I don't want to misquote the guy, but it was something in that area of you got to be tough to make it in certain markets. It's different if you play in Portland or if you play in San Diego or San Francisco compared to Philadelphia. It's probably a different atmosphere. All right, I'm going to stop here. Almost got to 3 hours. That's kind of what I shoot for, but I'm like 4 minutes short and I'm tired of talking. But yeah, Paul Garrity, he's a good character. Maybe one day I can stretch out this story into his whole series based on his earlier life. I don't know. I really like his character though. I don't know if anyone's ever done that, like a Breaking Bad type of show instead of a meth dealer or a Better Call Saul with a lawyer. Mad Men was about advertising. I don't know if anyone's ever taken on a cable news host from an actor's perspective and make a series based on I might be forgetting something obvious, but I can't think of anything. I'll pick a show that I kind of like from the 80s or 70s, WKRP in Cincinnati. I love that show. That's like radio DJs. It's not the same thing as a news, and that's a sitcom, so I'm just trying to picture people in my past my past viewings of TV shows and stuff. I can't really think of anything. So it could be an attractive role to play a cable news host who's kind of having a midlife or end of life crisis is the more apt term, I think. So it is an attractive role. Garrity leads this whole story. There's really not much of a supporting cast. There's some minimal roles for the producer and Zanya, and towards the end, some other characters, but not really. This whole episode is really just Garrity, 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 with the long ranting at the end, which really is a good way to end this entire series of season 1. Hopefully, more episodes to come if things go the way I think they'll go. So yeah, I'll keep thinking of other ideas, and maybe I can have another manic 2 years or 3 years where all I do is write screenplays and see how many I can do in the same vein. And I guess I'll stop it there.